Welcome to Exponential, a Nexus podcast, where we talk about people, code, and capital. I am Daniel McGlynn. Today I talk to the founder and CEO of AI Seer, Dennis Yap, and AI Seer CTO, Shahruj Rashid, about how they are building a real-time system to fact-check the internet. Okay, Dennis, Shahruj, thank you so much for joining Exponential today. We're here to talk about all things AI Seer, and I think the first place to start the conversation is maybe you could both tell us you can answer the question, what is AI Seer?
Thanks, Daniel. I think it's trying to put truth at your fingertips. So, it helps to fact check and lie detect anything you see or hear in real time. That's our vision. And we managed to fact check the presidential debate live last year, and we hope that's just the beginning. Sort of like antivirus for your mind. So much fake news and scams affecting us every day. So we need some kind of device to help us screen through all these things to find the good and true information.
And Shahruj, how do you answer that question when somebody asks you what is AI Seer?
I think
What's your
for
answer?
me, like AI Seer has been the search for truth. Like no matter which product we're working on, it has always been about how we can help people get truthful information, whether it be sieving out people who are trying to deceive them through, or it's the misinformation and the disinformation that people are sort of witnessing online during their browsing activities. So it's the search for truth. Yeah, that's what I think AI Seer does.
Okay. And Dennis, I'm kind of curious. You are the founder and the CEO of AI Seer. How did you start working on this issue in particular, and like what led you to create AI Seer?
I think it's about my life experiences. Most acutely when I was working for a VC, and we had people trying to scam us of money. Southeast Asia startup ecosystem has been affected by a lot of scandals. Most recently, Temasek and SoftBank invested in this Indonesian startup called eFishery, and it turns out there are a lot of fraudulent business practices and accounting. So my VC got scammed of 3 million US dollars from someone claiming to be some kind of tech whiz kid, but didn't have any of these actual informal experiences, like being the co-founder of Reddit's roommate, or Jerry Yang buying his first startup. So all these things didn't happen. Or being a tail fellow, he was able to raise a lot of money from my poor VC using these claims. So, but I think it goes back even further. Like there's throughout my life, there's always been very honest people in my life and very deceptive people. It kind of correlates, right, when they are not being factual, and they're not when they're not being factual, and they also intend to lie. These things tend to go together. So I've been trying to find some solution to this problem for a long time.
Interesting. And so, Shahruj, maybe you could take the next question of we talked about what is AI Seer, but maybe you could talk about how the technology that you build is solving the problem of disinformation or misinformation, like from a sort of technical perspective, or from a solutions oriented perspective, how does that work?
So I think I'm gonna talk about Facticity here. So Facticity is our fact-checking AI agent, and what Facticity does is it analyzes content. It doesn't matter if it's a video, it's an image, it's a long paragraph, and it breaks down each of these each claim that's made in that document. So when someone is talking, or whatever the person is saying is broken down into individual claims. And then our pipeline will then fact check each of these claims individually using reliable sources. And then the way we sort of come to these reliable sources is through an integration that we have with Adfontes Media Bias Chart. So they're an NGO that are based out of the US, and they rank sources in terms of their quality as well as their bias. So there is an actual team who are working tirelessly to sort of rank each article produced by each of these media outlets and putting it on a chart. I mean, they have their own methodology that you can read up on, but that's actually our driving force behind how we sort of rank our sources. We remove a lot of the culprits when it comes to like misinformation, um, like Reddit, Quora, and Twitter. All these are publicly generated sources of um, news. We sort of sieve it out, and we rely and put more weights on highly reliable and low bias sources, things like AP News, Reuters, and that sort of thing. So that helps us sort of eliminate a lot of the misinformation that comes from the social media itself. Um, yeah, so generally speaking, and then we have a multi-tiered multi-tiered uh, system of checks that we have in place. So, for example, we don't produce links that don't exist. We don't produce harmful content. Um, and if, for example, there are some wild claims that are being made, we don't say that it's verified unless we have reliable news from very highly reliable sources. So we are very particular about the kind of sources that we use, and we make it extremely meta-analytical to our end users to sort of see that information. So for example, you can see what the biases of the sources are that we're using to sort of make a fact check. And down the line, we want to be even more meta-analytical. So for example, if the English sources say a certain thing and the Chinese sources say a certain thing and maybe the French sources say a certain thing, we want our system to be extremely meta-analytical and provide that okay, so these are the information from the English sources, however the French sources say this. Yeah, so I think that's how we plan to sort of tackle this issue of bias that a lot of these other LLM chatbots have. Yeah.
Interesting. And how do you, Dennis? Maybe you could take this one. How do you keep up with just the scale and the scope and the speed of information, and then trying to fact check that information at the just that the rate that new information is being created and generated? How does that work? Like, how do you keep up with just the flow of information?
Yeah, I think it's got even worse with TikTok and chatbots. So to move the timeline back a bit, I think when I first started switching to Instagram, I made all the high quality news sources that Shahruj said, like the New Yorker, Wall Street Journal, all my favorites and friends, Time Magazine, BBC, etc. Right? So like my feed is just filled with high quality news sources. So I managed to like brainwash myself at least to only engage with high quality information.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, being educated a certain way, like I only read like peer reviewed books, journals, and all these cutting edge scientific journals and stuff. So I think that's one way. Like you sort of program your own information ecosystem to feed you only good things. Things that have editorial processes, right? Or even your social media feed is filled with professors and things like that. It definitely makes an impact, I think, on your information diet. Um, and then the other thing you could do is, from a technology angle, we have a Chrome plugin now. So even if your chatbot is um, generating something really fast, you can fact check it really fast with our tool before deciding what you believe. And I think it's very important that you insert this, like, I don't know what you call it, air gap, like before it's, you just absorb the information, and a lot of times what happens to me is like I'm falling asleep when I'm listening to some YouTube clip, or I'm driving when I'm listening to some podcast. I'm not even really trying to process the information critically, right? I'm just listening to it, and then the misinformation will get stuck in my head if I don't run it through a fact checker or something like that. So that's what we're trying to make available to everyone. You can just insert the link of a YouTube or podcast or TikTok reel, and then it will fact check you so that at least even if we're not 100% correct all the time, you at least get a second opinion before absorbing it. And leaving all of it.
Right. A directional fact check, I guess. And I'm kind of curious, the problem that you're working on is interesting to me because we live in this time where it's never been easier to generate information and share information and distribute information. But at the same time, that's leading us to this point where it's also never been harder to tell what's true or what's real or what's like legitimate information versus what's made up or a deep fake. And it feels like, if we keep going down the same path, that problem is only going to accelerate where um, the real versus not real problem is going to get harder to figure out with as AI tools become more sophisticated. And so the question is, we're using AI to generate, information or misinformation faster than ever before, and then we're also now relying on AI to to help us solve that problem that we're creating, right? And so I'm just curious, maybe the two of you could each talk about how you think about that, because that touches your daily work, and then what you see as kind of the underlying solution, whether it's a technical solution or maybe something else. Just kind of curious how you think about that.
Sure, do you want to go first with maybe a more narrow answer, then I'll try and answer it more holistically?
Yeah, I think we do identify that as a problem. That you can't just have a system that is checking a system with like no human in the loop, and that sort of like feeds into this idea of community nodes that currently exists on a lot of these social media platforms, and a lot of these users are sort of creating these community nodes sort of free of charge, and they're not being rewarded for being the human in the loop that keeps information straight. And although what we want to do with our Aristotle, our fact checking Twitter bot, is that, of course, we want to be the first person to come in and fact check it. But we want to have a sort of like a community of people who keeps the bot aligned. And so, for example, if our bot gets it right, if they provide feedback as to like how we can improve this, or if we get it wrong, and people can sort of come in and be like, oh, the bot did not consider this piece of news that's maybe it just went live like 30 seconds ago and the bot just simply missed it. So these are areas where the people can come in, the community can come in, and we can sort of start rewarding them through our Web3 token that we've recently launched. So I think we are sort of trying to fix the human in the loop problem, where we're creating like incentives for people to be that human in the loop and have it not just be people who are being exploited by these companies to be that person who does the research, who is diligent enough to constantly flag misinformation. Yeah.
It sounds like the way you're describing it, it's almost like a Wikipedia editor, right? Where there's somebody who's kind of taking the responsibility to read these articles that are passed as like, the source of truth and double check them and actually add citations or notations to them where appropriate. And so when you go to a Wikipedia page and you can see all that information, like not only the original entry, but then all the fact checking that's gone into it or the citations that have gone into it, there is a higher degree of confidence that it passes some level or some bar that we all understand of like, okay, it had to go through some process to get there. But Dennis, I'm curious your thoughts on it too. Like just the time that we live now where we have the availability of an incredible amount of information. We can work with that information and kind of use it to do, create all kinds of stories or interesting creative works. But at the same time, when you're out there looking for news or looking for information on the internet, all of a sudden now, you have to sort of proceed with caution. And so how do you think about that?
I think we've created one data set. It's a multilingual APJ data set. So I think we need to work towards using these benchmarks, the output of these AI. We need to hold it accountable through these kind of explainable and transparent means, right? Like if if ChatGPT consistently hallucinates about regional languages and has biases about minorities, then human beings need to be able to call it to account using some transparent benchmark, and more people should be producing these benchmarks and testing these AIs against them to make them fully explainable and transparent. I think in our case we go for overkill. Like sometimes you will see to support one tiny atomic factual claim, we have 20 factual statements to support one claim, right? And they all come from good sources. Or even if there's conflict in the sources, like let's say the Wall Street Journal says one thing, but then the New York Times says another. Then the New York Times needs to be backed by other credible media outlets and authors to support its conclusion over the New York Times, much as you would expect, like a scholar debating this particular interpretation of Machiavelli with another scholar, right? Like you need to provide the footnotes, and there is some, if it's non-consensus, the viewpoint you're arguing for, you should acknowledge it explicitly in the footnotes. I think that's what's lacking in our information ecosystem today, where people are just talking past each other, chatbots are talking past each other, or chatbots are playing into our biases. If you're left wing, it only gives you left wing information, making the problem even worse, right? But it wants to keep you engaged, so it just tells you what you want to hear. So we need to have this shared reality. I think Maria Risa talks about this, where not everyone on one ideological or like one country thinks a certain way or one culture, and then nobody can have a decent human conversation with each other anymore.
So do you think it'll be possible to like build credibly neutral like stance into like chatbots or LLMs? Like is that a feasible or realistic goal, or do you think just the nature of the technology, instead of programming neutrality into something like a chatbot or an LLM, you'd need to actually have other systems like kind of like the human in the loop system that you're describing, or like how do you think about that? Could there be like a different basis or a different foundation, or will it always be that we'll need to just have really robust fact checking systems in place?
So I think Columbia University created this benchmark data set, and they found like Gemini and Grok hallucinating at like 5 to 6x more than us. Um, they didn't test it on us, we're too small, but they found that the error rate of Grok and Perplexity was very high for the secondary hallucination. So when they cited stuff, it was hallucinatory. They quoted articles that don't exist, right? So obviously that's terrible. And humans should call out AI when it does this thing. And so yeah, we can make more of these data sets, we can do more of this testing, right? To make sure that these AIs are factual. I think that's something we as human beings can advocate for and work towards. And then it's up to the consumer, right, to make the choice. Do you want an engaging, entertaining chatbot who tells you what you want to hear, or do you want some hard truths or soft facts kind of AI? Trying to persuade you to be more critical, be more self-aware. Um, yeah, I think it's a choice that people can make on an individual level at least.
Okay.
And that's what our company hopes to do, create alternatives for people to explore and try.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to me that like, the more you start thinking about this particular issue, the more you realize that it is really complex, and it's kind of like we were just talking about a few minutes ago, the speed and the scope of information is accelerating, and as it does, that's making misinformation easier. It just more we're seeing more misinformation and disinformation, but it's kind of it's just kind of an interesting thing when you really start to unpack it, um, how reality and just dealing with facts is actually extremely complex. And in the past we had systems to deal with information, professional editors or news outlets with very high standards for disseminating information, or like Dennis, like you were talking about, just peer review and publications that came out in hardcover books. Like that was a whole process of fact checking, and as those guardrails disappear, it's interesting that the concept of reality is becoming more and more warped, or just harder to understand as we go down the road. So
Yeah, there's this great article I recommend to everybody listening to this podcast. It's called Acknowledgology and Epistemological Fragmentation by Dana Boyd, given to the Digital Public Library of America conference. Um, she promotes this. I don't know if you want to call it a conspiracy theory that there's this virus spreading and it's tearing at the social fabric of public life, and it's
Yeah,
it's technology that is doing this, and the ignorance is being strategically manufactured, right? And it's
right.
actually meant to be a tool of oppression by the powerful.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Without delving into the conspiracy theories, it's kind of easy though when you start really thinking about like this idea of reality and what that means, and the internet information, and it's just it's sometimes hard not to go down the route of conspiracy theories and start to think that way, right? But I think I think it's the answer is somewhere that it's like this very complicated problem of technology and just society and maybe education. Like there's just a lot of different inputs that create the issue that we're seeing. So I think it's incredibly interesting problem, and I'm glad you all are working on it, trying to tackle it. Um, and I'm kind of curious in your work, your day to day work. Is there anything you've seen um, that is an interesting or non obvious use case for a technology like AI Seer? And if so, what is that non-obvious or interesting use case that you've seen so far?
Yeah, so our bot recently launched on to some the token recently launched, and we rebranded the bot to be tied to the token, and um, we've been getting a lot of crypto Twitter inquiries, right, Shahruj, that we didn't like expect so much. So Shahruj has been busy working, trying to integrate Web3 data sets. You could share more about that.
Yeah. So since we launched the bot, I think on Web3 there's a lot of like news that gets spread around about this token being tied to this person or that token being sponsored by this group or like these two companies having a partnership. Like these sort of news I think are like pretty like prevalent in Web3, and because the market is so reactive to these sort of information, I think they don't really have anyone to sort of fact check these things. So I think people have been starting to tag our bot under those sort of news. It's like, oh, is this partnership news real, or did this coin really hit all time high like last week, like that sort of thing. And when we started out, of course, we weren't really optimized for these sort of fact checking, which are like more Web3 on chain data sort of fact checking. But recently, we've been looking at integrations, and we're integrating in data sources to be able to do that sort of fact check. But yeah, that's definitely not a use case we sort of envisioned, but we sort of discovered as we launched the bot. Yeah.
And so maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how that works for people who haven't seen it yet or haven't used it. So it's a Twitter bot that if I had a query, I would just tag it, and then the bot would generate an answer for me based on the data sources you described earlier. Is that kind of how it
Yeah.
works?
So right now you need to tag it under like a tweet. That the tweet can be either a video, an image, or like text, and you just have to sort of tag us under that tweet and be like fact check this, and then the bot would come in and fact check all the content that you tagged it in, and sort of replies you.
Very cool. And what's the handle for the bot?
It's called at Aristotle.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I'll have to try it. I'll try it after this. In
sure.
my
Please.
in my next Twitter foray, when I have some questions about what I'm reading, I'll give it a shot. Cool.
Yeah, so just to describe a little bit of the share screen for the viewers who can't see it, you can just click to the replies. We have more than 20x our number of followers since the token launch, I think. And you can see a lot of people on X giving it a try. Some people say we are better than Perplexity and Grok. I'll leave it to you to decide. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, everybody should go try it out, test it. So I'm curious too about we were just talking about some of the implications for Web3 or building a community to keep humans in the loop for this information, and to act in the role of editors and kind of confirm or verify what they're seeing. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about how the mechanics of all that work? It sounds like you recently launched a token, and then how does that work for the community? Is it like the amount of time that you contribute, or the amount of answers, or the amount of output you have? Maybe you could just walk us through those Web3 elements and how that all comes together.
So on Aristotle, you can see that when it replies with a link, and that link sort of uh, contains a detailed breakdown of all the fact checks that's been done. So, for example, if the tweet is based on like 20 fact checks that we did, it's going to have a link that points to our website, which will have those 20 fact checks listed individually that you can see. Then you can sort of like provide feedback for each of those fact checks. So right now we're doing a daily cap because we're building in. So it's our first time we're going to be launching our token gated platform, and so that's going to replace the sort of links that currently exist. So starting out, we want to do a daily cap of the number of times people can sort of provide feedback because we're aware that this system might get botted if like
Yeah,
left without any daily caps. So we're gonna allow people to sort of correct and provide feedback for 5 fact checks a day, and uh, moving forward, if the system is working fine and we're not getting botted, we might change that number. But we're starting out with 5, so we want to sort of. So the system would simply work. You click the link, you go to our website, you connect your wallet, and then you start providing feedback, and based on your feedback, we will sort of reward you with points.
got it.
Which, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll have to check into that too. It's cool. I think that this one thing that I think is interesting about new Web3 communities that are developing around, this idea of doing this kind of distributed work and then earning rewards for it, and how that can be applied to all kinds of interesting problems where we still do need humans in the loop. So we'll see how that all develops, and keep an eye on that. Okay, last question for you both. If you were looking ahead, and you can take this question, I'll let you interpret it the way you want to, but looking ahead, maybe a year, 5 years from now, what do you see as like the biggest innovation in your space, or what do you see something that maybe you're keeping an eye on the horizon that you're excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited because now people are, when they tag our bot and then the fact check comes in, a lot of the influencers are deleting their tweets,
Hmm.
right? So we need to
Interesting.
figure out with some way to work with Nexus to, store those tweets, maybe get, yeah, um, and so we verify that, oh, this guy did spread this much disinformation. It was seen by 20,000 people before he deleted it, and then now he's such a coward, he doesn't even dare to stand by his tweet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there needs to be a system built onto X to see who these people are. This is today's greatest spreader of misinformation, and then he couldn't, he ran away from it. Like he acted so bold when he said it, and then he's trying to hide what he did. Right? I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we should figure out a way to incentivize people to do this. And yeah, I would love to work with Nexus on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sharush, what do you
Sharish, do
think?
you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what I really look forward to is sort of like I think right now, a lot of what we're trying to do is sort of like branding ourselves and being at the forefront and telling people that, hey, we're the fact checking company and we do fact checks. But I think 5 years down the line, if we're sort of like able to play our cards right, I think we want to sort of hide into the background, and we just want to be built into devices, built into sort of browsers, built into like your day to day browsing experience where you don't even know that sort of like fact checking is going on, and we're that accurate and that fast, and we're able to sort of give you content that is not misinformation. I think that would be the sort of ultimate goal. Yeah.
Yeah. That does sound like an exciting vision for the future, and I appreciate that. And hopefully, we can all kind of watch your journey as something like that happens, and we'll keep tabs on it. And I appreciate your time, both of you, very much for joining today. We're kind of all three of us are spread out over the world, but I'm glad we had this 30 minutes to connect and talk more about AI Seer and what you're building. So thanks again.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
All right, that's a wrap for this episode of Exponential. We'll be back next week with another show featuring people, code, and capital. Please like, review, and share Exponential wherever you listen to your podcast. And be sure to visit app.nexus.xyz to see what we are building.